Tom, remind me please how much time we get. Are we doing 10 minutes-ish?
Ish.
All right, this is a relatively new one called I Bet You Think This Poem Is About You. If you laughed. Yeah, we're old. Just putting it out there, we're old. Okay. I bet you think this poem is about you. Stop. Just stop. Seriously, stop talking before I slap the scattershot chatter silent. End your battering, overbearing over everything, everyone, everywhere. You're oversharing every thought, undersharing the air, overtaking the space, the time, with equal parts authoritative show-off superiority, blowhard showboating, soft blow blow-offs, and random free associations. Whoa. Puffing grandeur, you meander, but what's good for the goose is not for the gander, as you smack down others' brainwaves as irrelevant. But the elephant in the room is you, the thing that will not be overlooked, no matter how overcooked your ponderings are, or how undercooked your musings, your wanderings. Are you really even glad to see me, or just glad to be seen? You are your own routine, the gray cliche you mean to keep at bay. There is so much you don't get, and so much you take away. This next one is based on my work. I work with at-risk youth, and I used to teach. Now I'm an academic advisor in a high school program at Springfield Technical Community College. So I hear a lot and I see a lot. This is called Scratching the Surface, and this is for AP, NR, and KB. One comes into school, thick red scratches striping down her temples and cheeks where her mother grabbed her face and held her. She and her younger siblings move in with their uncle. She's 18, but won't leave them to take care of herself. A few months later, she moves back with her mother. After they get evicted, she disappears from school. One comes into school, hoodie up, long bangs covering half her face, long red scratches underneath. Through tears, my grandma spazzed out. She is 18 and declines to call the police. She returns home after a few days at her boyfriend's. Grandma makes her apologize. She does. One comes into school late again, crisscross red scratches scoring her neck. Earlier this morning when she was trying to get ready, her father's girlfriend came at her. The police were called. She is 17 and her mother doesn't have space for her, but she can stay there for a few days. She calls around to shelters and wants to file a police report. She hopes her father will kick his girlfriend out so she can go home before DCF puts her in foster care. And that's just scratching the surface. This is called Death Came to the Blue Jay, and this actually happened myself. Death came to the blue jay. Death came to the blue jay in the form of a hawk. The dead jay's mate screamed in impotent outrage as the hawk took its time picking apart its prey. The survivor hopped from branch to branch, orbiting this great gravity as the deadly beak tore flesh. Feathers rained down and blew away on the same wind that carried the survivor's cries as it shrieked and shrieked, inconsolable. And just when the screams slackened, fatigued, they came back stronger. After its breakfast, death sat smug on the edge of a branch, unperturbed as the survivor continued raging, flapping around, even dive-bombing it. But death would not leave when being provoked. Sated, it merely fluffed itself and looked out impassive over the terrain. Eventually, it tired of being pestered, opened its wings, and took off. The survivor flew off too, still shrieking into the distance, and all that was left were a few feathers floating. Those of you who have me as a friend on Facebook may have seen that a few days ago I had a visitation from our beloved Carl Rousseau in an early morning dream at that time of the morning when the dreams are coming fast and often vivid. And so this is sort of related to that and also sort of in a different direction. This was not written about that, but it relates to that kind of dream. And this is called Sugar Cleanse Dream. A bite of a cookie felt like those dreams when the beloved dead come to visit, vivid and real and beautiful and sad. I awoke bereft, pathetic, what I wouldn't give for one more day, one more hour, one more minute with that cookie. Another short one, this is called FLOPOSO. At the co-op, they're selling succulents with your name. Purportedly low maintenance, they are prone to fungus and mealybugs. I think of you and laugh at the stubby, bulbous rosettes, trying to look cactus tough despite their spinelessness and the flowerlets lurking within. I cock an eyebrow, imagining one with a bomber jacket around its fleshy, silvered leaves. Hell, if it were poisonous, it'd be you. All right, I got two more. I got time for two more?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. This one is one I dug out of the files and I've been working on recently again. And it's been untitled, but I'm thinking about calling it If Only You Knew. So if anybody has other suggestions for titles on this one, please do let me know. So tentatively, If Only You Knew. You are a lightning spider, a wildfire sparrow, an electric malamute, a sunspot antelope, a volcanic starfish. You are a thunderclap butterfly, a cloudburst cheetah, a sea swell hummingbird, a meteoric bumblebee, a jet stream starling. You are a zephyr elephant, a meadowgrass dolphin, a stillwater cricket, a moonlight buffalo, a horizon starflower.
Wow.
Thanks a lot.
That's great.
All right, I'm going to end with a political one. I wrote this in late November in response to the Ferguson ruling that said that the cop involved in that shooting was not going to be prosecuted. I lived in St. Louis in another lifetime as a young adult for 4 years, so I felt somewhat connected to what happened there, even though it was 5 years ago. And white poets have been charged with not letting Ferguson be something that only black poets write about. So this was my response to that, and this is called How We Forget. My grandmother used to tell this joke, a Yiddish classic. A Jewish man arrives at Ellis Island so tired from his journey and so nervous that he might be turned away, that when he gets to the front of the line and the official asks for his name, he blurts out, "Schon vergessen, I forget." So the official says, filling in the form, "Sean Ferguson, welcome to America." Welcome to America. Ferguson is now indeed a code word for the forgotten, the people who live the legacy of African American history, which is also white American history. But Sean Ferguson, we forget that now is history, and history is now, because we don't want to look at that history, at the now that history produced, at those people. If we look, we don't like what we see, we get scared, and looks can kill. We absolve ourselves with a bombardment of buts. But he stole, but he was high, but he charged at the police officer, but he didn't put up his hands. As for the return fire of buts, but not all of those things are true. But it's not that simple. But none of that justifies killing. But he was unarmed, but he was just a kid. But he's part of a pattern and a context and a history. Sean Ferguson, we forget. Sean Ferguson, we forget another Ferguson, Judge John Ferguson of Louisiana, who in 1892 ruled that Homer Plessy had to abide by the East Louisiana Railroad's segregated cars, was appealed, then upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court, which enshrined separate but equal into American law for 60 years and into American culture ever since, though separate has never been equal, still isn't, and never can be. But after bus boycotts and school busing and the dream and black power, and now that we've had a black president, Sean Ferguson, we forget that when it comes to equal under the law, theory and practice are two roads diverged. Some of us are under the law, and some of us are above it. Strange fruit no longer hangs from trees. but rots on the ground where it has been shaken down, cut down, mowed down, gunned down, burned down, beaten down, and held down, along with all who see it there and know their lives are cheaper than talk. When we ask what they're complaining about, what their problem is, it's because of Sean Ferguson. We forget, because we want racism to be over. Let's focus on the positive, how far we've come, and maybe we won't have to look at anything that makes us uncomfortable or is inconvenient for us. Ah, Sean Ferguson. 4 years I lived in St. Louis, and I never once went to Ferguson. My coworker Marcus lived in North St. Louis somewhere. I never had reason to know if it was Ferguson specifically. He must be in his early 40s now, if he's still alive. We didn't stay in touch after I went back east for my Ivy League grad school, and the future I felt so entitled to, I didn't know to call it entitlement. I'd Google him to try and find him, find out who he became and how his life is, how North St. Louis is. But I don't even remember Marcus's last name, because Sean Ferguson, I forgot.